Hello, everyone. My name's Hank Setala,
And I'm Dr. K.
and we're here with an episode of Holistic Highlights. So I'm just going to take a moment. Welcome, everyone. I am so sorry. I am late. I forgot my charging cable last night. I got a suite, and then I came to get that, but forgot my headphones. So I had to go get a headset, and then I was 1 minute late to start under the old schedule. So hopefully everybody's finding us okay.
This is the perfect prelude to our conversation because most wives would get super angry with something like this.
True.
My
Yeah.
husband's always late. He can't get it right.
And see, in my household, it was my wife who's always late. And for me, being on time would be 15 minutes early. And for her, on time is 15 minutes late. We would kind of balance out.
Yeah, that's funny. We all have our quirks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to make this public on my profile now. And where would you like to start? Well, first, if you're watching, if you have questions about relationships, and not just doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, any relationship, any questions around that, feel free to post them and we will go ahead and follow where the energy goes with what you would like to hear about.
Yeah.
But did you have something in mind of where to start our conversation today?
Yeah, I'm bringing this up because I think it's been the theme in my office for the whole week. Somebody's just, and this is something I hear all the time. It's a struggle. And Mark's on. Good morning. Good morning, Mark. And Mike's on. So, hey, everybody.
Yeah. Good morning, Magic Mike. Good morning, Mark. I'm
This
glad you
is
found us, even though I screwed up the stream.
This is a topic that I think a lot of people deal with. Gosh, I've dealt with it too. And it's just um, maybe there's no clear way, but how can we make things better? And there's a lot of people searching for relationships. There's a lot of people in relationships maybe trying to get out. There's a lot of people that want the relationship to be better, whether this is your family, whether this is, a husband, a wife, a romantic partner, wherever you want to place yourself. There's often challenges come up, and people, this is an area I think people struggle with. So it seemed to have been the theme in my office this week. So I thought, this is something to bring up because it's just like the health, wealth, and prosperity thing. This is in love. This is something that ties into that, and it's something that's just circular. How can you make relationships better? Um, I think we often want the other person to be a certain way. Is that true? Do most of you agree? Like, if only John would just, listen to what I say, and if only he would, we want the person to be a certain way, and you know, we do this, but I think what it really comes down to is we need.
Uh-oh.
I found in my life, in my experience, we look to the external,
I'm not sure if I need a better
deal
relationship with
with
my
something
internet or if
internal.
it's you.
Oh,
Well, for
why?
me, you're
What's
coming
going
through a
on?
little robotic voice. So I don't know if I'm lagging hearing you or if you're lagging speaking.
I've got my mic on. Is this better or is
Okay.
it still robotic?
I think I think it was like more of a speed, like just the way that the stream was transmitting. If anybody watching, if you could just let us know, was she breaking up or was it okay for you? Just so we know if there. I don't know if we can tweak anything. We'll just continue on. I'm hoping it was just my internet being able to hear you. Let me make sure I'm on the right internet connection. I'm on
Yeah,
the.
let
Yeah,
us
I am.
know.
Okay.
Mike
Yeah,
says
Mike's giving us
phone's
a
not working.
5911. That's an access thing when technology stuff
Oh,
goes
okay.
awry.
Okay. I'm
Yeah,
like, huh, there you
yeah,
go.
yeah. Well, each
um,
number has well, actually, you could use maybe a number thing for relationships too, but each number has like a certain energy behind it. It might count like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then changing it up, like you can just facilitate different change with those energies. And Mark was saying that you were breaking up a little bit, so I
okay.
don't know if there's any internet setting that we can really tweak now, but just
Is
being
this
aware of it.
is this better, everybody? I mean, because I can switch from my mic. I don't know if this is an internet issue. Better. Okay. People say better.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Let us know if that's happening again or if there's a delay. So going back, it's internal work. It is we look to the external often for things we want in our internal life to change. And it's usually always an internal issue. And maybe I'll share a story. I don't want to make it long, but I was in a very long 18-year long relationship. And I can tell you it was an 18-year long lesson of self love. And when I finally at the end said, "Whoa, wait a minute, Adriana, you need to work
Uh-oh again.
person, you just kind of glitched out there for a second."
Yeah, and for me, you were glitching. So
Okay.
maybe there's a lot of entities that are just messing with us. Like, we don't like this topic. So
Sorry,
anyway,
entities. um, but yeah, so it's always doing the internal work. When you start to do the internal work, your relationships around you will start changing, and that's a really, really important thing to write down. Maybe kind of here again, when you start doing internal work within yourself, the relationships around you will start changing. Speaking in generality, sometimes when we do internal work, um, people around us, one of two things happens. Either that person starts to come around because they start seeing a shift, or they drop off, meaning you kind of just either you break up or um, if it's a friend, maybe you just stop talking to them. This has happened to me as I've up leveled in spiritual work and energy work. There are certain people that, um, people around you that may not be able to handle or meet that frequency or meet that energy. And you'll still see them, but maybe you used to go out every month for dinner. You'll just find that those people kind of drop off. But with relationships, I think a lot of people struggle with having a really good relationship. And what does that entail? And how do you navigate through that? So it's really, it's all coming down to doing the internal work, cleaning up the internal stuff, um, because that's where it all lies. And for people that are trying to attract a relationship, like, I've been trying to find a guy for there's something internal because or if you're attracting the wrong person over and over, like there's this thing that goes, I married my father or I married my mother. This is an internal, you have to deal with those deep, deep, deep little internal things so you can stop repeating the process of trying to, you're going to be sent that lesson over and over. And the way we do that is through other people in your environment. I tell people it's like a mirror. Picture yourself as a mirror and a mirror in front of you. The outside world is showing you portions of what's going on the inside. So if there's a lot of chaos within, don't be shocked if there's going to be a lot of chaos on the outside. And we like to point the finger, we like to blame,
when you
we
point a
like
finger, three more are pointing back at you, though.
yeah, and it becomes this like turnover thing. It just keeps happening, and it's the same pattern that keeps repeating, and you keep arguing about the same process. Doesn't that happen to a lot of people? Like you seem to have the same argument, and it's like it's just not resolving. Because if you start to release things internally, the external things that the person is doing are likely going to stop bothering you. Mm. But we also like to hang on to certain things. We like to be in the need to be right, um, and really prove our point, even if that person may not agree. And this is the challenging piece for a lot of people. So I don't know if you have something to chime in.
Oh,
Um,
there's all kinds of things to talk about with this because sometimes it could be a really great relationship, and it's simply that the people are missing each other. There's a whole concept in neurolinguistic programming, or NLP for short, where we have different strategies for love and for relationships and things. And some people need to be told something, some people need to feel something, some people need to see something, and sometimes it's just we miss each other because the person's providing information in a certain way, and the other person just can't receive it. And sometimes just a tweak will just open up the doors of communication to then explore all these other things. But one of the key things that you mentioned is like you marrying your mother or marrying your father. Anybody who's ever looked at their parents and was in the energy of, I wish I could understand why they're the way that they are, right? The universe hears that, and you will draw to yourself an experience that's going to put you in the same position to then be in the same energy that they were in and make the choices that they made. So when you're making like when you're finding yourself marrying someone that is very similar to her parent, maybe that would be because you put out to the universe, I wish I could understand my parents, and now you married one of them, and now you're in a very deep relationship with it and having firsthand experience as to why they choose the way that they choose.
Yeah, that's definitely one angle. And the other piece I think is what didn't you get? Um, what didn't you get from your parent? A lot of times this is one of those things, like when you marry your father or your mother, there's often something we wanted from our parent that we didn't get. So now we're getting that opportunity again to um, figure that out and learn that lesson, because it was very clear to me when I had undergone this long lesson of, gosh, it was like 17 years. When I started to turn, yeah, it was like that long for me to wake up, but I didn't have the tools then that I do now. And as I started to doing a lot of internal work, it took me, I'd probably say about a year to 2 years to really just like, no, I'm going to start. I had this note in my head, like this gut punch, like, no, it's time to turn internal. Stop waiting for the other person to change. This is you need to work on yourself, and you need to clear some things up within yourself so that you can perceive your external in a different way, so you can perceive your world in a different way and attract really what you really want. um, so when I started doing that, really magical things started happening. So I really encourage, if any of you are out there trying to find a relationship or the relationship's not working, start to look internally and start to do and clear out some internal things. And you'd be shocked how things on the external start changing, often in a
Right?
positive way.
And manifestation works two ways. If you're manifesting from a duality level or a level of polarity, the truth is opposites attract. And oftentimes, when people are looking for Mr. and Mrs. Right, the first thing they attract is Mr. and Mrs. Wrong, and
Yeah,
because they're working out of the duality and they're getting the opposite of what they're putting out. When you do the inner work and you have like your inner vibration that's shifting, and you're looking for a creationship, meaning that you're attracting it on like the oneality level, not the duality level. Like attracts like. Both are truths. All the greatest truths are paradoxes. So one's a duality truth, one's a oneality truth. So at what level are you drawing to yourself the relationship or creationship that you're experiencing?
exactly. Yeah, so it's really kind of checking these things and doing some self-evaluation and doing some, going internally and taking some time there. Often when we look for something or someone, like I have a friend that, has been trying for a long time, but when we haven't, when we, and there's no reason, I mean, she's gorgeous. But when we don't, how should I phrase this? When there's, I think another point here is forgiveness. If we've been in a past relationship and we haven't closed that door properly, and we haven't made peace with the internal things, and we're still blaming that other person, or we're still angry at them, or we still have this cord that needs to be cut and needs to be, healed, then we often can't quite get to the other person that we want to attract, because the universe will keep giving you. If you ask for somebody, they will keep giving. The universe will give you people, but we often miss it. We don't see it, or we reject it. I've seen that many times too. Like I have, know people that just, well, this way the guy's nice, but he didn't have this and he didn't have that. It's that person. I look externally and I'm very good and gifted at looking at the situation and saying this person would have been great. The energy was good there, but we miss it and we dismiss it because we won't let that in, because there's still something internally that needs to be healed, fulfilled, a cord that needs to be cut from a previous thing, a forgiveness that needs to be done with a previous person. If we're hanging on to those sorts of energies, to forget, you're not going to quite attract what you want. That's why this whole rebound effect happens. And this is why people break up sometimes, because um, we haven't quite mended, healed the past thing, and we jumped into something else with kind of like cloudy glasses. So that's a really, I think the biggest thing there is to really make sure, if you're transitioning, ending a relationship, going into another one, take some time and do some internal work. Hank and I both, can help with that. Looking internally, cleaning up some of those things that have been like raw endings, as I say, because you're going to enter something else and you're going to find that it may not quite be what you wanted.
And we did have a comment from Rudyard, that she believes that her parents are the reason why she decided not to be in a marriage type of relationship. And one thing I wanted to speak on this is it's only in our society, well, other societies around the world, but the whole idea that you have to do the thing they call up, grow up, and then you have to do the thing that you call get married. There's a lot of judgment around in some cases in families where someone's not married by a certain age. But there's other cultures like in Peru, like the Caro and everything. The marriage is only for political reasons if it's going to be healthy for the village, and other than that, they don't have marriage. So it's a really odd thing. So
Yep.
like stepping outside of the cultural um, stigma, I guess is the word I want to use, that it's not something you have to do to be in a marriage or anything like that, though we typically feel that that's the way to do things. And you
Yeah.
get a tax break, which is another thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point that, we have a stigma in this society that you need to get married, you need to have kids, you need to be a certain way. You can, make marriage whatever you want it to be. It is really just a spiritual connection with another person if you so choose, you know, um, that you have that connection. And you could honestly, well, not necessarily you can't marry 1,000 people, but it's like there's a lot of people we meet that we love. I love people. Like I love a lot of people. That doesn't mean I'm going to be with each one of them. There's a lot of stigma and a lot of in the boxness around this. So guys, really just make it what you want. Don't We are all limitless. We have to remember that we are divine beings. We always forget that. I think a lot of people forget or need to be just reminded that we are divine beings and we can, you know, there's a lot of people we connect with. And marriage is a box that's been created by, I don't, do you know where marriage originated, Hank? I don't,
Not
your history
100%
of,
sure. I could Google it.
oh
Where
gosh,
did marriage?
history. But you don't have to. I mean, like my take on marriage now, even with, you know, the person I'm with is like, I don't need to get married, even though the parents want that. It's like, no, you don't need to have that. You can go somewhere in a park and just agree to have a partnership, you know? So
Yeah, it was originating in Mesopotamia in 2350 BC.
wow.
And it had little to do with love or marriage. It was all about, let's see, back then, marriage had little to do with love or religion. And it was primarily to bind women and men, thus guarantee the man's children were usually biological heirs. So it sounds more like a monarchy, possibly type of thing to keep the throne and the lineage, possibly. But I'm
Fascinating.
just skimming this. I'm not diving deep into it.
Yeah, that's not really the topic, but I think really just make it what you want it to be. You don't have to be you don't have to squeeze yourself in the box. Make life what you want it. You're a divine being. In the end, there's a lot of people we connect with. There's a lot of souls we connect with. So where do you want to really, make a like this has to be it, and you're tied, and then you're bound. It doesn't have to be that way. It really doesn't. But I think the other very key point that I think to mention is allowing the person to be who they are. We often want the person to change. We want them to be different. This is friends. This is, um, siblings, romantic relationships. We often want the person to be a certain way. And this is a common theme that I see so often. Um, when you allow the person to just be who they are, it takes a lot of pressure off everything and it makes you feel much lighter. When you blame, judge, you are releasing a lot of you're depleting your energy and you're giving that person energy. So
Right.
the
And if you're
constant
trying to
blame
change them for every action, there's an equal to opposite reaction in
reaction.
the duality. And if you just let them be, that's the art of allowance. And that's where you free up the space for them to choose something different. But if you're trying to change them, there's actually resistance to that change.
And it makes the saga or the cloud thicker, way,
The
way
drama,
thicker.
the
The
trauma and
drama
the
is
drama.
getting, yep, will get way thicker. So what I suggest is find because it's very easy to, we had this whole talk on toxic people and how to have a conversation with those people. And there's a lot of people that are in relationships, especially I think now, where people are during COVID, when people couldn't get out. There's a lot of divorces because now we have to look at those things that we've been sweeping under the carpet. And it was very easy to, I gotta take the kids here, I'm going here. Well, you couldn't do that. You were stuck at home and you had to kind of deal with these things. Number one, allowing the person to be who they are. And you're probably like Dr. Kidd, it's really easier said than done. Um, because we are very attached to, attachment is a big topic here too. We are very attached to either codependency, wanting that person to be a certain way, manipulating them to be a certain way. It's really pulling yourself back, being an observer, and if something's really troubling you, just saying, that's interesting that that person is doing that. But when you dive in, and like Hank said, there's just starts to be a resistance. And then the energy of the situation gets thicker and thicker and thicker, and you're arguing about the same thing over and over and over because it's not getting resolved. So the saga just gets thicker. So the best thing to do is to really pull yourself back, be an observer, and start to have a
Interesting
different
point of view.
conversation.
Yeah, that's a tool
Interesting
and
point of
access.
view. Yep,
Yeah,
interesting point of
it's a
view.
lifesaver.
It
Not just for
is.
relationships and everything. It's a tool that starts to take all the judgment off of everything, so you can really be in the space of allowance of whatever it is, and then make a choice based on who you choose to be in that moment, which is a completely different thing than reacting to a situation. Allowance is the ability to truly respond based on all the things you're aware of, and reaction is judging something and then immediately doing something that then you're looking at the afterwards going, did I really do that? That's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, absolutely. It's just, that's a way to back up and back out. When you dive in, you're creating more energy around that, and it becomes thicker and thicker and just more challenging to, you're pouring energy on the problem when you're having that same conversation or the same argument, whatever that may be. You're pouring more energy on the problem, and it becomes way more challenging to navigate it. And then that creates internal stress, and it's not shocking how people start coming up with all sorts of physical problems. I'm seeing it. It's really fascinating. All sorts of physical problems, because then there's tension on the inside of the individual. So when you can back up and just say interesting point of view and don't pour energy on it, you're going to be at a better vantage point. The other thing is, what do you want to pour energy on? Whatever you pour energy on mentally, so wherever you put your focus, that's what's going to expand. So, what is it about the person that you're with that you actually like? There's got to, there maybe could be one little sliver of light. Maybe they make a beautiful garden, or they do, I don't know, if they
My
cook
hope would
well.
be it's because they let you be you. That would be the best one, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can pour your energy on that and focus on that and say, gosh, you know, um, Bill is just really great at, he always tells me I'm really pretty. We fight all the time, but he always tells me, when you can spend your time, how nice that he can do that. Find that one little thing, or he provides for the family, or this person just always makes me feel this, or they always do this for me. They always make sure my gas tank is full. These tiny little things, if you can focus on one thing, and pour all the energy on that, you're going to start seeing that that's going to expand, and it's going to be easier for you to navigate the other issues. So those three key points, like doing the internal work, for absolutely, for starters, for everybody. Number two, allowing the person to be who they are. And number three, find a little point of something that you like about that. There's got to be something you like about that person. If you married them, you married them for a reason, right? What did they do a long time ago that got you to marry them? Hopefully it was something good. Because usually things are great in the beginning, right? It's over time that things get all mucked up and they get all walky wanky, and you're like, what's going on? You know, Go back to what was there that you really liked and pour energy on that and see if we can work from there. Because we're humans, we have egos, things happen, and things need to be worked through. And it is a constant, it is an effort. So, um,
I think the biggest thing that causes something over time is that when people get into a relationship and they're not in the space where they're allowing the other person to be them and they're trying to change them, that we end up sacrificing who we are. to stay in the definition and conclusion of the relationship. And then over time, that just becomes resentment and people grow apart
Yep.
over time.
Yep.
The other part is kids. You marry someone, kids come into the picture, and there's an 18-year whirlwind of craziness, and then the kids leave, and then you're with this person that you don't even know each other anymore. And not all situations are like that, but I heard Dr. Param talk about this. He's a professor at Baldwin Wallace, about this phenomena that after the kids leave, then you and your spouse are there and you're completely different people over the course of raising the children. And you actually have to dive in and get to know each other again, and really look to enter into that relationship or creationship again.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. If I tell people to try to make time, carve out the time to spend time with each other, even if you have kids, because this is, yeah, where things kind of get lost, where things get weird. And then, yes, empty nest syndrome happens. And then we're like, you don't know what to do with yourselves. So that's important to carve out the date nights, make sure you can communicate. There's time can be bent, so you can always carve out
Yeah.
that time. It can, yeah, totally can. Didn't bend for you today a whole lot.
No, well, I wasn't even thinking about bending because I didn't realize I was going to be running late.
You didn't
Uh,
prepare for the bending.
I didn't at all.
But
And I was
carve
only
out,
1 minute late. If I had been 1 minute sooner, it would have
I
all been
know,
okay.
darn it, didn't,
It's
yeah,
all right.
funny. Things work out for you some most of the time. Today was a little funky. Um, so that's that, those three things. And then we get into taking on other people's energies because we do that a lot too. Um, when you start living with a person, that person's energy starts to permeate a room, a space, a home. So if there's a lot of anger going on, think of it as you're having a food fight. All that stuff gets splattered on the wall. It gets absorbed into your space. So sometimes you find yourself taking on other people's energy, but that's a choice. You don't have to do that. You can say, cut the cords. I'm not going there. I'm not going there with that. Because that's when we start to say, why am I starting to feel away? I'm starting to get angry and blaming and all this, and it just continues the saga. So when you're living with a person, that person's out there doing all sorts of stuff. They bring stuff home. You dump all of this energy into your home. So cleaning the home, I think, is a really important thing to do too when there's a lot of tension. And do you have some suggestions? I have some suggestions, but do you have some suggestions that people can do, Hank, to keep the
Yeah.
energy in the home better, cleaner, etc.?
Well, one thing that people can do, and this is something my wife and did a lot before kids and just recently got back to, is once a week we actually do like a meditation together. And we used to do that even more frequently pre-kids. But just being able to meditate, and they say meditation is like it just allows the boulders to come up in a very calm, mindful way, and you can deal with that. And it's also very enjoyable. It's peace and quiet amongst the chaos of having kids. So that's also a very nice thing. And really take a step back and look at what can I do to empower the other person to be who they are in this world. Because in Access, there's like three keys to relationships, and one of them is that you let the other person do whatever they want, whenever they want. And that has been a key. Like with me being self-employed and everything, she really holds the space for me to do this, and then she has music and photography. I hold the space for that, and we really are empowering each other instead of saying, well, you can't do that, you need to make a sacrifice to do this. And so we're not asking each other to sacrifice at all. It's always about empowering to what could I do or be to help, to allow the space for my significant other or partner or friend or whatever it is, to be who they are.
Exactly. I think that's a really important point. Some things I do for, cleaning spaces, you can use a salt bowl. So it's just a bowl with water and you just put some salt, 1/4 of a cup at the bottom, put it in the corner of a room. That will absorb negative energy as well. If you have pets, that's the challenge. I have animals, so I put mine under a couch. Probably put one in every room and you dump it, periodically, maybe once or twice a week. That's one thing you can do. You can run an Om chant through the whole, home. Sometimes I will just blast that for about 30 minutes. You can run a meditation in the background just to clear out the energy, because the energy does, the walls, believe it or not, now our walls are made with, there's crystals in the walls. So a mixture of, cement and all these other things that they put in the drywall. But they absorb energy too. So sometimes you'll go into a home and then you'll come home and you'll be arguing. You're like, why? Because you were in a home where there's probably a lot of tension and somehow you picked up on that and you brought that home. So that's a weird thing that kind of happens. So the energy's everywhere. And so we don't realize when we yell at a person, when we blame a person, when we point the finger, you are throwing energy at that person. And that gets heavy in the field. When we talk about energy, that gets heavy in somebody's field. And unless you know how to clean that up, it kind of works its way in. It starts to become heavy. You start to feel thick. You start to feel like slow. All sorts of funky things can happen. So back yourself up and just really, like, say, interesting point of view, and start to work on yourself and unwind a bit so you're not so in the thick of all these arguments. And I know you're like, that's easier said than done. It's a choice, guys. It really is a choice that you can make today to say, not going there. I'm not going there. I'm not getting into this argument. And by no means are we saying that if you're in a toxic relationship that is really, really difficult, it may come to the point that you have to leave, because sometimes the other person changes when you start changing. Sometimes they don't, and if they don't, there is this third point. So either they drop off or they start changing and becoming a little more loving as your energy starts changing. Because don't forget, as what you emit, if you emit love, light, and caring and compassion, then things around you will start changing. They absolutely will. Is it going to happen overnight? I don't know. It could. Maybe takes a little bit of time, or the other person may not be able to handle that frequency. It may stir things up within them.
And
It's
they run away.
and they run away, or they could become a little more toxic. So by no means are we saying, well, keep working on the abusive relationship that you have where somebody's hitting you. No, if it comes to that, then yes, you may have to make that choice internally to leave. And that's a challenge for people too. Do you continue to stay in an
Till death
abusive
do us
relationship?
part. Till death do us part. That's the mindset when you get
Yeah,
married.
that is the
And
mindset, and that is a church thing, guys. And I don't want to offend anybody that's Catholic here if you are, but or any denomination. No. Would God want that for you? Would God really want that for you?
and the analogy that I use with some of the clients that I've had that are going through a separation and things is like a plant analogy, that there's these two plants in a pot, and in order for them to thrive, they now need their own pot. And it doesn't mean that your experience with them is done. The pots can still be right next to each other, but now they have their own space, their own thing. And that's just an analogy of showing how you can now thrive. Sometimes a separation could be the greatest gift to the
Yeah.
other, but in the moment, it sucks because it's a change, and we're, as humans, we don't like change. We like, everything to remain the same forever, right?
Yes, we do.
but uh, but sometimes, looking at it, what would create the most here, and sometimes the answer might be that if there's not going to be why did you even get into the relationship in the first place? Was it a healthy reason? Was it a codependent reason? Are there things that you need to heal from, that once you heal from, that relationship has run its course? And then having the willingness and the freedom to choose for you what's going to create the most possibility, not just for yourself, but for others. And if you're in an argument, one access tool that you could use is to say, what can I be to create something different? And just throw that question out. You don't have to say it out loud, but if you start asking, what could I be in this experience that would create something different? Oftentimes that's going to shift the energy enough where instead of the full blown argument or whatever your experience normally is, you may see an opportunity for a different experience. Because this is a question that's not in judgment. This is just saying what could be different here, and having the willingness to receive it. And a couple questions,
Yeah, I saw
backed up
that. Yeah.
here. Just Radhika saying that she's really enjoying the
Oh,
conversation.
good.
And Anne Marie, focus on one good quality of an individual and expand from that helps. It's a starting point,
Yep.
and just a
Yep.
willingness to start is sometimes enough to start making shifts. And Mike has a great. I say this all the time: self love is not selfish,
It's
and
not.
the
Yeah.
distinction between being self first and selfish. And if you are sacrificing who you are to be in the relationship, then that is you're not being self first. You're basically not being who you are, and you're never going to be happy in any relationship
Yeah.
at that point because you're sacrificing who you are.
I think
And
this is a great top. Yeah.
yeah, and
I
she thinks marriage is just a business contract. In a way,
think
it
it is
is.
too. I've gotten out of that now. And I think that's great that you bring that up, those points, Hank, because these are all boxes that society has created for us.
Yeah.
They really don't exist. We've created them. And so, yeah, it's just some of these things we get really tangled. We get so tangled in all of these things. And Swami Parthasarathi, which is he's a self-awakened soul in India, and he travels and teaches. But one of my mentors passed along, and I've heard him say this too. Every now and then I'll catch him. But marriage and relationships are like they're like two pillars. If those pillars are too close together, the infrastructure will fall. And if they're too far apart, the infrastructure will fall. So it's kind of finding that medium in between, where you allow the person to be who they are and you just emanate love, really. And getting back into that heart space. If you are full of love, you're going to emanate that love, and people are going to feel it. And keep. Sometimes we're like, well, I've been giving it to them and they haven't changed. It's been a week. Keep giving it. Keep giving it, because somewhere you're going to get that in return. Is it going to be with this person? I don't know, but you're going to get that back. You will get something really loving back. So it's better to be in that space than to be in an angry space because you are only hurting yourself. So yeah, all these points that Hank, brings up, and you know, oh, my friend Scotty's gone. Hi. Cool. More people tuning in. This might be
Yeah.
a part
Thanks for
two.
joining us. We'll see.
But it's when you allow the person to just be who they are, and I know this gets challenging. So when you clear out your own energy, you're going and you clean up. Like I use the Prometheus process to clean this stuff up. Hank has his, we use access consciousness, whatever we can do to clean some of this internal stuff up, because it's triggering some points. And when you clean some of these things up, you'll be like, oh, wait a minute, that used to really push my buttons. That's kind of not pushing my buttons so much anymore. And you allow that person to be who they are, and you expand within yourself. And so it's I've been through it, and it's just like a magical thing that happens. And you start attracting what you want. You start attracting the people that you want. You start attracting the relationships that you want. And your relationships are so much better because you know how to navigate them through. We should probably just talk about attachment too, because I think a lot of people get attached to
Yeah. Well, and another thing just to
people.
mention too, when you start with a relationship, we often have those glasses that we see no wrong in the person. And the idea that the person like, oh, they're perfect, like that energy, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so like when you've said something like that, and then they turn out not to actually fit the ideal that you had in your mind, either you are disillusioned and you don't see for much longer a period of time the things that are not perfect, or you make yourself wrong or you judge yourself for being wrong. And so the idea of perfect in those initial glasses that everything looks all peachy and all that, oftentimes that can cause people to be in a relationship much longer than they would have otherwise, because they have those lenses become a filter that they don't see the things that they don't want to see at first or for a very long time, until it becomes
Yeah.
so big that they can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah. And the signs are always there in the beginning. We're just kind of head over heels, and we don't,
Yeah.
we kind of don't pay attention. And a lot of people enter relationships, I think, I used to do this when I was young. It's like, that person's really hot. But then you start to spend time with them and you're like, oh, okay, I don't know. It's a soul connection, when you start to really clean up a lot of internal stuff, you start to connect on a soul level, and you love that person for their soul. And the looks, yeah, they're a nice bonus, but it's kind of like you fall out for a different,
Well,
and that's like, you don't
there's a
fall
whole
in
belief
love.
thing there too, because a lot of things instilled in a lot of religions is that you save yourself for marriage and whatnot. So just having a physical relationship with someone, in a lot of people's minds, their point of view is that I have to marry that person, or that it puts them on that level of relationship where maybe it's just the body's wanting to copulate. And it's just a physical thing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be anything else. But we judge ourselves for all that kind of thing too.
Yeah, sexual energies, and maybe a whole part two of this, because
Could be.
that moves up and down the chakras. So if you know a lot of creative people are, they're kind of sexually active. And we've made that wrong, and it's just an
Yeah.
energy. It's just an energy.
Mike brings up a good question. This is an access tool as well. What's right about this I'm not getting? So when you're finding yourself in the relationship and you're judging it, saying this question starts to shift the energy for a whole different possibility. Because what if whatever's going on, there is a rightness to it or something that could create a different possibility? And just asking that question starts to shift
It
everything.
does. Just ask that. I just asked that in my own head, and I was like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. It starts to pull out those things that are actually could be really good. And you can then pour more energy on that. And that starts shifting things. It can take very, very little things to start shifting a relationship. And I think the three things I mentioned, those are really, really important keys to you can really turn things around because as things got bad, they can get good too. Everything's always possible. It's infinite possibility. But we have a lot of boxes around the way things should be, what a person should be like, the whole marriage contract. I had another thought that fleeted my mind. That always happens here. I'm like, oh, I need to start writing it down. Um, because we get into these boxes of the way things need to be in a certain way, and it's just we kind of need to rise above and know that we're going to be attracted to different souls, and there could be a karmic thing. And for a lot of gals, we have a long karmic, and for men too, we have a long karmic saga of men can't cry because it makes them look weak. How way back, how could a man cry in a battleground? He'll get killed. you know Women, even to this day, putting a lot of makeup on, having the shoes, looking perfect when you just go to the grocery store at 11 o'clock at night. This is a karmic thing that's been going on for years because we've been taught that we need to look perfect for a man. We need to look exquisite because if we don't have a man, we won't survive. Like way, way, way back, if you didn't have a husband, I don't know how many years would go back, but if you didn't have a husband, how are you going to survive? Women back then weren't, self-sufficient like they are now. This has been an evolution process. So we carry this through time that we need to look perfect, be perfect, act perfect, have the perfect body at all times when this is just a body. It's just a physical thing. Now, I'm not saying don't put makeup on, love makeup. It's great,
Well, if you
but
do it because you enjoy it,
because you
and
enjoy it,
and
right?
and, and not because you're trying to fit into a role that's been projected on you by society or from the community and things like that.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, women are treated much differently than men, and it's very frustrating. And I'm going to be working on something like that because I keep getting the hit from the guides. You got to do this. You got to put a class together for men because we are still humans and we are equals in a way. Yes, we have different body parts, but there's a lot of us, a lot of parts of us as men and women that are equal. And I think we've been segregated and like Hank said, this has been projected on us for years that men can't cry, men can't be vulnerable because that's a sign of weakness. And there is no weakness. We're all divine beings. We're all a part of source energy.
What would it take
So
for us to come together and actually use our where we have our niches and things to create more possibilities for everyone rather than not embracing them and creating limitations for everyone?
oh, I just got chills on that because
Yeah.
can you
Well,
imagine the
there's
world
a
we'd
clearing
have?
around this.
Oh,
Yeah. So
yeah.
like the clearing, this is an access clearing. So all you have to do is be in the mood to receive here. And when I say you're willing to destroy and uncreate it, energetically say yes. But what roles are you using to receive the limitations that you're choosing? And all that is, we destroy it and create it, right, wrong, good and bad, pot and pot, call nine shorts, boys and bands. And you don't have to understand what I just said, but all that is about identifying the energy where we're accepting these projected roles from society and from families and from friends and ourselves and lifetimes of that, and getting to the
Yes.
core of it and letting it to start to unwind so you can step into a different possibility. That's what that clearing statement's all about. And I just have to put this up. We got someone watching from New Mexico. They're watching from the Sandia National Laboratory in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Thank you so much for tuning in with us.
Welcome. Yeah, that's a far away one. I like that. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, it's so I think that's a very key point is to remember we have had so much projected on us over time that now we're in these roles. And I think now with the ascension process, everything going on, it's time to start uncreating these things. And I'm going to say this, but to create more equality between men and women on this energetic level, because I just got chills and I just saw the universe, like how what we can create. Oh,
Check
that's
this out.
awesome.
Women are treated differently. They're also interested in different things. And granted, this is a generality. There's always potential exceptions. But it says that women want a man with a good future and men want a woman with a good past.
Huh. I love that's fascinating. I love the way
Yeah.
that's stated. Yeah, it's wanting what we want. But again, those are limitations. Those are limitations. When you remove that and uncreate that, then sky's the limit and possibilities are the limit. And then we actually, I think a lot of these stigmas and a lot of these agitations will disappear because how many arguments are there around money and around, you don't do enough around the house. I do all the work. Gosh, I've gotten caught up in that, um, those would be removed. All of this stuff would I just see it all lifting. I'm like, that's really cool. What a world it would be if we could start uncreating some of these things. Um, who else is commenting? There's
We just had
Marta.
Scott saying, very tough to get out of the rescuer, persecutors, enabler roles all
Yep.
people experience in families. And there's also something to be said, empaths. This happens a ton. In fact, Ryan, who's here at the center, he has a whole empathic empowerment training around this. He calls it like a moth to the flame, the empath and the narcissist. And sometimes like these different potencies that we have, whether it's a narcissism or being an empath, they end up drawing to each other and creating a very quote unquote dysfunctional relationship. And being able to recognize that and being able to shift out of it can be problematic for some people.
Yeah, it can. This is a very tangled up topic. It really is. But I also want to say it doesn't have to be tough.
Nope.
All you have to do is open a small portion of the mind. So this is where I think I'm going to be, I don't think, I know I'm going to be putting something together for the male population to start opening the mind a little bit and go, oh, I never thought of that. When you start opening that little window, you start to get more possibility and you start to get more thoughts around, well, maybe it doesn't have to be this way. It just takes that little bit of a switch to start getting things to change. And this whole persecutor rescuer thing, if you bring awareness to some of that, people will change. Some will, some won't. I can't guarantee for everyone, but if somebody's just receptive and open to that, to say, huh, I didn't think about that, you'll start thinking about it and you'll start to see things differently. And when you start to see things differently, possibilities are endless.
And for your class, a book recommendation that might have some inspirations for it. There's a book by Dr. Dane here called Return of the Gentleman, and it goes into a lot of the role identifying type things. They have ones that are geared towards women as well, but it has a lot of interesting concepts in it that they have very candid conversations in the works about all these things. And we have another comment, quantum generator. Equality will be difficult. For some people, marriage is like landing a dream job. Then a couple years later, demanding half ownership in the business that hired you.
Yes, so true, isn't it? So it's really, I think now's the time to start lifting some of these heavy, heavy boulders that we've been carrying and these boxes we put ourselves in. Because if we're able to do that, even just a little, even 10%, things will start shifting. And I think it's time for that. I really do think that's time. And then attachment, we get attached to, I wanted to just briefly talk about that. We get attached to our kids, we get attached to relationships, we get attached to our parents. I see it so much. How many people have seen people living vicariously through their kids? I mean, not me, I don't have any kids. But
I mean,
not you for sure, but
well,
I
I do
have
use it
seen
as an
people do
excuse to
it.
get into bounce houses and play with them, though, because I like bounce houses. But I would want to do that with or without kids.
You got to be a kid, guys, too. That's a side note. Like, learn to be a kid. Kids, when we were kids, our expansion in our mind and our imagination is it was limitless. Kids get what they want. They want when they want something, they don't stop till they get it, and they in their minds they're like they're everything. So don't forget how to be a kid. We forget how to be a kid. So go down a slide even as an adult.
Yeah.
Just do it, really. You'll have so much fun. Go do
Oh, I
something.
would ask your body if it's like to go down the slide first. I only say that there was an incident at this company that has slides in it, and
Oh,
somebody went down
okay.
one. And they just had an unfortunate circumstance occur. So it would be good to check with your body. Like, is
Oh,
it fun to go down the slide, or should I maybe go down a different slide that's a little bit less adventurous?
um, Yeah. Well, maybe not the slide, but go find something kid-like
Yeah,
to do.
yeah. Kid like to do.
Fly a kite.
Absolutely.
When was the last time you flight a kite? Maybe something like that. Easy.
Ooh, and this tool, this is also an Access tool Mike's giving us. This is the Access mantra, and if both people in the creationship instead of relationship do this, it can create so much. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. They define glory as the exuberant expression of life. So if both people in the relationship or creationship are focusing on a mantra like this, what would that create? What space would generate and allow you to shift into all kinds of different possibilities? So I absolutely love that. And they're saying our podcast is excellent. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Please don't forget to subscribe. And also, when it comes to, and we'll go a couple more minutes. We want to wrap up before the hour mark so we can post this to Instagram. I got my a different account so we can start doing that. Again, and we'll plan for a part two for sure. But when it comes to advice, men give women excellent advice because it's based on empirical evidence and
The
truth.
truth.
And then when women give horrible advice, it's because it's based on emotion, magic, and fantasy. So, what would it take to be able to merge those two
Yep.
effortlessly to create different possibilities for everybody involved?
Yep. We do have a
Yeah,
little bit of a brain. We think a little bit differently. Women are more emotional, but if, like Hank said, if we could merge the two, wouldn't that be cool? Like then we really get it all. But it really still comes down to energy. It doesn't matter what it is, it comes down to the energetic piece. And we should talk about them, sexual energy, because that's a big hot topic for people.
it is. Well, and to give you the other three things and access to three things for key to successful relationships is number one, that they're good at bed. Number two, that you let them be or do whatever they want whenever they want to, and the other person does the same for you. And three is that either they provide abundance or hold the space for you to provide abundance. So either way, that they're having some sort of energetic contribution to the abundance in the household, and those are their three little access key points.
Yep, I think that third one is a key piece, because a lot of that kind of energy shifting these days. A lot of women
Yep.
are making more money than men, and that's going outside of the box. That is
Oh
going
yeah,
outside
my
of the
wife is
box.
definitely the breadwinner. She's got the corporate job that's like doing project manager, team lead. I don't even, my head spins when I see what she does, how much she's juggling in the air. But she also holds a space for me to be able to do this and work with people and do all the fun stuff I do behind the back thing here. You see all my little sound toys and everything. So we're holding the space for each other to provide abundance and to allow the other person to be who they are. So it really is great. And Mark says, for many, till death do us part is a
It's a
destination.
destination. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be that way. I'd like to start removing that, because in your
Yeah.
mind, because don't stay. If it's not working, you don't, and you've really put the effort in, you don't have to stay. There's nothing that's binding you to stay. And actually, things could get a whole lot better if you start to just give each other that space. And I think giving each other space is really important, because that's another thing. Like, so and so doesn't spend enough time with me. We need to spend time together. We get very attached, and that's manipulating the other person then to, again, be how you want them to be, and constantly being on top of them. And even when you're trying to, meet somebody, it's when you over potentialize, give somebody too much energy, call them all the time, harp on them all the time, that person's going to run away. It's the same thing with anything else. If you chase money too much, it's going to run away. Anything you chase or put too much energy on is going to start getting weird. So,
And remember, intention is like a bow and arrow. Like you shoot the bow and arrow, that's the intention. You've
you
released it.
let it
It's
go.
gone. You don't have to go pull, 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 release, 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 watch, 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 watch. That's not intention. That's focusing way too much energy. All you have to do is intend and then trust that the universe will do its thing.
Yep.
And it's really that easy. And then you perceive the result, then you make a new intention and repeat, but it's not something you focus on. Like you don't have to sit there and focus on your hand moving, you just move your hand. That's the intention. My one ear must be bigger than the other because this one does not want to stay in at all.
It's worked though. We've made it
it,
through.
it is. It is. And one thing we didn't talk, we had the One Healing Clinic already a couple weeks ago, and we were going to talk about when we wanted to do that again. Would the first and third Monday of the month work for you?
Um, yeah, I
I'm
can
throwing,
make it.
throwing on the spot
Yeah,
because we wanted
so
to announce it during the stream. So like we didn't talk about it, so we got to do shop
we
talk on
can
air.
totally do that. We can totally do, well, Mondays are easiest for me. Let me
Yep.
just looking at my
So I picked
schedule.
Mondays. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Cool.
can we
So
can totally do
we'll
that.
get a scheduler up, and if you go to main website is hhh.life. If you go to hhh.life under events, there's going to be a link for the clinic. It's not, you can't schedule it yet, but what basically it is Dr. K and I sit you in a chair, and we each work on you for about 10 to 15 minutes, and just as an intention to clear out the reservoir of heaviness and limitation in your field that allows you then to make more clear, concise choices of what will create possibility for you. So we're going to
Yeah.
plan to do that the first and third Mondays of the month. So October 5th will probably be the first one because we're just announcing it now, and next Monday will probably be too quick. So if that works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine.
So
Yeah.
we got that. Anything else?
Start in
Oh,
October.
maybe a final comment. Most millennial women don't care about your struggles, and I'm not familiar with millennial women, so I don't know much about this. It seems that they just wait at the finish line and pick up the winners. Just an observation. I'll have to take your word for it. I don't have uh,
Different
millennial.
cultures have different things, and I'm trying to do. We're still all the same beings, guys. So we're no matter what country you're in, no matter what gender, you are still a divine being. You're still a soul. So you still have that energy, and if you work on your energy, everything changes. The rest is all beliefs that we have adopted somewhere through a culture, through our wherever, through our wherever you are, you adopted some beliefs. We created those beliefs. So those are the two things. And part two, maybe we'll just talk about the sexual energy and how
Maybe.
that works.
And talking about millennials for a second, do you know what our generation right now is going to be called when they're older?
No.
The quarantines.
Oh, good one. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. And Mike was just saying, thank you. This has helped me. Thank you, Mike, for tuning
Oh,
in.
good. I'm
Thank everybody
glad.
for tuning in. This has been so much fun. We'll definitely plan for part two. We always, unless we're not, on Fridays at 10 o'clock. So set your calendar. The best place, if you aren't watching on YouTube, the best place to pick us up is on YouTube because we sometimes will stream to different destinations. So if you're watching on a Facebook page, let me close that out because I started hearing myself. I'm just posting the YouTube link now for this stream. So if you want to click through to that, make sure you subscribe, turn notifications on. So if we are streaming to different locations, wherever you're watching, you're guaranteed that you're going to get notified when we go live and are doing our thing.
Yeah, and if you need any extra help, if you're interested in doing more, Hank and I are here to help. You know, you can reach us however you want to
Yeah,
go. But
hhh.life is the best website, but we each have our own sites too. But it's
yep,
all
we all
through,
have.
yeah.
Yep. So I do a process, he does a process. We're starting to merge, for people. Sometimes I will, when people are with me in a program, then, I'm starting to bring Hank in. So let's just keep working and cleaning and
Yeah.
cleaning and cleaning till you feel lighter and brighter.
Functional medicine meets shaman. It's crazy. I love it.
I love it too.
All right, but thanks for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.